going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to $3 Theater for the 10th of April, 2019. And this morning, we all got treated to the Lion King official trailer. 1 minute and like 37 seconds, which I'm sorry, that's a tease. It could be the second teaser, but it's still a tease, showing us none of the plot. I have no idea what's going to happen in that movie. I have no idea what's going to happen at all in The Lion King. I've never seen it before or any kind of derivative product. Never, not at all, not once. But that's where we find ourselves today. I did a trailer reaction this morning when I got up, and very much looking forward to doing another trailer reaction to Star Wars when it drops later on this week. Man, I just need to know the time so I can be awake, be prepped, be ready to go, have my daughter laid down or my girlfriend looking after her so I can be like, babe, I got to go watch some Star Wars. She understands the process. I'm a good parent, but no, anyway. So I like to apologize for yesterday on the channel. A lot went on. I did the Blu-ray therapy in the morning, and I was not expecting as much news to drop in the afternoon as it did, which then prompted me to put out the podcast, which ran a lot longer than I wanted to. And then, of course, I had to clip out the content and re-upload that, and it was a mess. I'm going to try to keep it a little more under control as we go forward. It's part of the problem of wanting to share as much with you guys as humanly possible, to talk with you guys as much as I can about these projects, because I get really wrapped up in the whole discussion of it all. So that's how I work. So as we can see here from the picture, Hawkeye is in the news, right? Hawkeye's in the news here. We have that, and of course, if you wanna call into the show, and we have a voicemail to get to at the end, by the way, or you want to email your questions, you can always do so at 3bucktheater@gmail.com, or call in at 818-350-3281. That's 818-350-3281. Phone lines are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and of course, let's jump right into it here. So, Hawkeye is getting his own show on Disney Plus. Apparently, that's a little bit weird. Now, this is not unheard of. We know they're doing this with other projects as well, but still, that's a little bit odd for me, in my honest opinion. So it says here that Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye is the latest member of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to line up his own Disney Plus series. Variety has learned from sources that Disney's upcoming streaming service is officially developing a limited series based on the archery ace Marvel character, with Renner attached to star. The project is said to be an adventure series in which Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, will pass the torch to Kate Bishop. Bishop is a Marvel Comics character who took up the Hawkeye mantle after Barton. She's also a member of the group known as the Young Avengers. Renner has, of course, been part of the MCU since 2011. And this is a Disney Plus limited series, very similar to Loki, Scarlet Witch, and Winter Soldier and Falcon. We've heard of these limited events happening, and I think I know why. I think I know why they're happening. For one, Kevin Feige has said that he very much wants to make sure that they can get to all the new characters they want to get to. Right now, of course, he's not necessarily referring to X-Men, Fantastic Four, or Deadpool, even though he kind of is. But he wants to still deal with the older characters that people know and love. So what better way to give them a proper send-off and also to pay them a lot of money and let them out of their contracts a lot earlier than to do these limited event series that will probably end up being on Disney. Well, that will end up being on Disney Plus, and that will serve as a lead-in, as an introduction to a lot of new characters that will ultimately open up time in the MCU cinematic slate. Because that's kind of the whole point here. It's going to open up the timing in the slate. So they're going to be able to continue on telling these bigger, broader stories that pull in billions of dollars while focusing on the character development, or at least the introductions and origins, on a smaller scale, which is great. You introduce a new character on Disney Plus, test the reaction to it, right? It's going to be a more, a lesser investment because you're not going to have to spend as much on marketing. And then you can also build up fan favorite characters and put them into the movies, because now all of this will be run under Kevin Feige, which makes a lot of sense. This is the way he's doing it. As always, I want to see Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist come back in that regard. And it's sad that they're not out there yet. Anyway. Also, according to Disney Plus here, they're planning 2 Marvel documentary series. Now, I was kind of unsure about Disney Plus in regards to the content it was going to offer. If Disney Plus simply came out and said, hey, we're going to put all of our back catalog on there, all the family-friendly stuff on there, all the family-friendly Fox stuff on there, like Rio, Rio 2, Ice Age, Horton Hears a Who, all of those movies that they have done, as well as all the other, family-friendly items that Fox has put out over the years, and puts that on Disney Plus, that would be enough right there to get a lot of people in the door. Especially, look, here's the deal. You have all of Disney's animated movies and all of Pixar's movies, and you're good to go. That's really about it. People would pay the $9 a month or $10 a month initially for the first couple of years in order to get just that content alone. But adding on top of that, Star Wars TV shows, Marvel Live and Event series, other things they're working on, like movies. They are bringing certain movies there. Documentary seems like an interesting choice, but anyway, it says here, ahead of its investors presentation tomorrow, where many of the details of its streaming service will be revealed, including release date and price, details of 10 unscripted series currently in the works for Disney Plus have come to light. The live feed report said 2 of the 10 series will be Marvel docuseries. One is Marvel 616, an anthological documentary series exploring the intersection between Marvel's rich legacy of stories, characters, and creators, and the world outside your window. Different filmmakers tackle the episodes with which look at the real-world context of Marvel stories and their impact. I'm not going to lie. That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. Because you always hear, the story, Stan Lee based, Professor X on Malcolm, or Professor X on MLK, and Magneto on Malcolm X, and then set it to kind of like the backdrop of what would happen, after the Holocaust. It was a very interesting take on these characters and putting them in that type of world, and then telling us the stories with interviews and exclusive footage and never before seen, art and things like that would be very cool. A lot of YouTube channels already relatively tackle that to the best of their ability, but this is going to have the full force and funding of Disney behind it, so that makes a lot of sense. Now, the other project is called Marvel's Hero Project, which looks at the positive changes several young heroes are making in their own community. Inspiring kids who have dedicated their lives to selfless acts of bravery and kindness are celebrated for the true superheroes that they are. And look, I'm not going to lie. I'll be honest with you. It seems interesting, but it's also like grade A propaganda. It really is. Also in the works is Earthkeepers, which is a cinematic documentary series about conservationists, cooking competition show Be Our Chef, which seeks diverse families to create dishes for Disney theme parks. Cinema Relics, which looks at props and costumes of famed films, and the Kristen Bell produced Encore, which in which High School Musical castmates reunite years later to recreate their performances. So they're going for a little bit of variety. These shows, these documentary shows, they're super cheap to produce. So that's why they're going to make them. They're super cheap to shoot. They're super cheap to make. And if they're done right, they can get a pretty solid following, and then people are going to like it. There's also Reconnect, which looks at families of modern day relatable issues. Rogue Trip, which is a travel guide about going to non-touristy holiday stops. Shop Class, which is inventive engineering students compete, and an untitled Walt Disney Imagineering documentary series. So they really are going for a lot of what they can. Really the only one here that interests me is the Marvel 616. The other one, about the kids being superheroes, that's cool, man. Like, I'm cool with that. I mean, I'm going to be called a cynic, but I also am like, I'm not going to watch it. I might check out an episode, but the likelihood of me actually watching it is going to be very, very, very minimal. But that being said, the 616 stuff sounds pretty cool. The other ones sound like maybe the Imagineering. I'll check out the Imagineering stuff, but in the meantime, I'm not entirely too sure. All right, jumping over here, we've got a report that Disney streaming service launches in November, and this actually makes a fair amount of sense. We don't have an official date. We're going to learn that pretty much tomorrow, along with probably the initial pricing for how things are going to cost. But it launching in November does seem like the right time. It's towards the end of the year. We're going to be going into peak Star Wars hype, Frozen 2 hype, and Disney is going to be on the forefront of everyone's minds because of The Mandalorian coming out, because of Frozen 2, because of Episode 9, and whatever else they got in the pipeline. It's a good time to jump in on that releasing. Also, people are going to buy subscriptions for their family members for Christmas. Oh, you want to, I didn't know what to get you, but all your kids, you seem to like the Netflix. How would you like a Disney Plus subscription? And people are going to lose their minds over that. People are going to buy this. Like, people are going to flock to this thing to the point where the first days it's up, the servers are straight up going to crash. Now, it says that although no formal announcement has been made yet, a new article on Disney streaming service in the Wall Street Journal claims Disney Plus will launch in November, with software developers instructed to dial back other projects to make sure the service can handle millions of subscribers when it launches. And workers at Disney's streaming division were told to focus on the Disney Plus launch and cut back bringing in new outside clients. The division also works on the streaming technology for outside companies like the WWE. Now, remember, just to give you a brief bit of history, back in 2017, so 2 years ago, in the middle of the year, like summertime, Twitter was up for sale. Right? Twitter was magically up for sale, and Disney was rumored to buy Twitter. But instead of buying Twitter or putting in an offer for Twitter, they bought BAM Tech, which is the technology that basically powers ESPN Plus and a lot of other streaming services. And this is what they're using, what they're investing a lot of money into in order to bring people on board, in order to get people to get the service. It's another reason why they purchased the 21st Century Fox's entertainment assets. They want access to that back catalog to completely fill out everything, right? To just hammer it from all ends and to keep people paying that monthly subscription. If the average person pays, if the average family pays $10 a month, right? $10 a month for access to Disney Plus, and they get 100 million subscribers, which will not be difficult to do. It's Disney. I don't think it's going to be a problem. That's $10 billion a month. Now, not necessarily completely putting it to the overhead cost of things. That's a lot of money. And ultimately, Disney is going to be able to use this to pay off the debts that they accrued by purchasing Fox and everything else they've been buying. I mean, this is how Disney is going to compete with Netflix, which, by the way, 100% stands to just decimate Hollywood right now. And I'm going to do a side video on that one. Anyway, it says here, Disney will also introduce a number of live action programs like The Mandalorian, but even the new material will largely remake or build upon the old. The Journal reports that Disney's research about the viewing habits of customers of its UK streaming service Disney Life suggests that subscribers say they want new programming, but often just watch the old. That's why they're making new versions of old properties like Star Wars and Marvel, and a new version of High School the Musical. And that makes a lot of sense there too. Especially look at it like this. Remember earlier this year, or maybe at the end of last year, right? And there was that big debate, that big whole how to do online about, oh my God, Friends is leaving Netflix, everybody. Oh, Friends is going to leave Netflix. And then Netflix is like, calm your titties. Calm your titties. It's not going anywhere. Neither is The Office. Why? Because they spend $100 million a year for Friends is what the licensing fee is. I'm not kidding you. $100 million a year for the rights to Friends. And when it comes to The Office, which is the #1 streamed show on Netflix, it's the #1 streamed show, which ended in 2013. So it's been out for 6 years and it's still the #1 most streamed show. They spend a lot of money for that too. Why? Because people like to rewatch old stuff. Parks and Rec just hit 10 years from when it started, and all the series, the entire run is on Netflix right now, meaning that people are going to be watching it. And so it's in their best interest to keep paying that licensing money, because that's what's going to be bringing people back. And then through there, they'll be watching the other content that they do produce. It's a very interesting marketplace. And this is what we're going to see Disney do as well. They're going to focus on rehashing the old because, quite frankly, that's what people want, which is really weird considering how many times we don't go see reboots or remakes. Perhaps that's because, well, people don't want a reboot or a remake. They want a sequel. But even in that case, Mary Poppins Returns was a sequel, and that still didn't do as well as it could have. So, you know what? In some aspects, literally all bets are off. So here's a fun one for you. If you happen to be a fan of the Conjuring universe, The Nun 2 is being developed. Has a really fun story according to the producers. So if you saw The Nun, which actually was a $22 million budgeted film that went on to make a worldwide gross of $365 million, which I think is the movie that pushed the Conjuring universe over $1 billion for those movies. Because there was Conjuring, Conjuring 2, Annabelle, Annabelle 2, and The Nun. Those 5 movies, $1 billion franchise for New Line and Warner Brothers. And so really, or is it, no, I might be wrong about the studio. But it feels like that. I don't know. I think that's what it is. Is it Universal? You know what? You know what? I'm not even gonna. I don't even know. I don't even know. But that being said, look, they are. It's profitable. I think it is New Line and Warner Brothers because Walter Hamada came over from that division to head up DC Comics or DC Films. Anyway, it says here that according to producer Peter Safran, he confirmed that the ideas are already being developed for The Nun 2 and that the film itself is pretty likely to happen. His quote is, "I think there is an inevitability to another Nun movie. We have a really fun storyline for that teed up. So I think that will be the next one that is written." So obviously it's not going to be going off anytime soon and it's not going to be in theaters anytime soon. But these movies, these low budget horror films that bring in an astronomical amount of cash will always get sequels. And if The Nun 2 is one that they think is not going to do well in theaters, they'll still spend the money to make it and drop it on home video. That will probably end up going on the Warner Media streaming service, which will then bring a lot of those horror fans in. Look, say what you will about like Disney Files and whatnot and how dedicated they are to the cause. Horror movie fanatics, and you all will absolutely agree with me, are even more dedicated to horror. Disney Files keep around a very small kind of isolated area, and that of course is all Disney, which is big. It has a catalog, but still it's isolated. Whereas horror movie fans will share the worst shit on the planet because they're like, "Oh, dude, you got to see this movie, man. It's so terrible." But they all talk about it. They all watch it, which is the reason why those movies keep getting made. The horror movie groups, those are the people that I think are the most dedicated fan base in all of filmdom, if you want my honest opinion, because they will watch the worst schlock in the world and still go, "Man, that was dumb. That was terrible." But that one scene where that girl got torn in half and that dude freaking jerked off on her corpse, mwah, perfection. Anyway, this is an interesting update that just came down the pipeline. Ryan Coogler is taking a break from Black Panther 2's development because you know that's already been in development since the movie first came out. But now he's working on Space Jam 2. And he's basically having problems because of shoe contracts that are limiting casting options. And of course, they want this to be a movie featuring a lot of basketball players, and they're having a great deal of trouble filling that role. How about this though? Don't do it. I think I'm not the only one at this point that's going like, look, a LeBron James led Space Jam 2 is not a movie anyone is particularly excited for. It's not one that anyone's like, "Yeah, dog, give me more of that." 1996 was Space Jam, or 1995 was Space Jam. I think it was 96. You know, we can't listen to that R. Kelly song anymore because it's, well, you know, he's a bad person. But that being said, you're not going to be able to top the concept of Space Jam, which was very much a limited one in scope in and of itself. Michael Jordan, having retired from basketball, now a pro baseball player, gets recruited by the Looney Tunes to go and play against monsters inside of that world. And then along the way, he gets his game back. He finds his groove. The movie's all about how Michael Jordan found his groove to go back to basketball. And that was where the movie ended, with him going back to the Bulls. So that's where it's at. You don't need, you don't need Space Jam 2. What you need to do, if anything, is just promote the fact that the original film website for Warner Brothers is still active. Do that one. But anyway, it says here that Black Panther's Ryan Coogler is rewriting the script for Space Jam 2, but the casting process is being held up due to rival shoe contracts with Nike. NBA superstar LeBron James has long been attached to star in a new version of Space Jam, but hasn't been until the last several months that it picked up steam since the original 96 film. Okay. It's okay. So LeBron is not wanting to do a direct sequel. It's more of a reboot. Nobody wants that, LeBron. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants Space Jam 2. It's a reboot. No, fuck you. Go look, you did good by helping kids get education. I think it's in Cleveland is where you're from. I don't follow, basketball very much, but you did good in that one. You're good in that philanthropist aspect of it. Why don't you stick with that one or help the freaking Lakers win? I don't know. Do something, do what you're paid for. But rebooting this movie is a dumb idea. Now, okay, it says here, now, according to the report from THR, LeBron-led reboot will rely less on NBA players and more of a family dynamic spearheaded by James and Martin Green, who will play a husband and wife. The report revealed that Coogler has become even involved more with the film and is currently rewriting the script with Searching's Sev Ohanahan. But Space Jam 2 will feature more NBA players besides just James, and the reason for the recently reported holdup casting fellow superstars comes down to shoe contracts. James is one of the faces of Nike, and the company is essential to the franchise. So players who have contracts with rival brands like Adidas and Under Armour are not expected to appear. And this is why it doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to happen. If you're being held up because of shoe contracts, don't do the movie. Like, I mean, I'm legitimately thinking of any valid argument to get Warner Brothers to go, this is a bad idea. You know, this is a terrible idea. It's terrible. It's just terrible. But instead, what they're doing is they're focusing on, you know, they got a problem with shoe contracts, which is like, again, the most like privileged thing on the goddamn planet, isn't it? So stupid. Just cancel the movie. Guaranteed. None of you guys out there give a crap at all. And finally, we got this one here. Mark Hamill on the possibility of Star Wars fatigue. Is there such a thing as Star Wars fatigue? And people out there might argue, yes. Yes, there is. Yes, there is such a thing as Star Wars fatigue. And look, I don't know. I haven't hit it yet. I'm just going to start off by saying that one. I don't know. I haven't hit it yet. Now, it says here, playing franchise protagonist Luke Skywalker through 6 of the 9 films, Hamill's been on both ends of praise and scorn from his debut in the original trilogy to the more controversial sequel trilogy, particularly The Last Jedi. Well, that's very true. But then again, Mark Hamill is not so much like praise and scorn. He was praised for Luke by practically everyone. It was all about how he felt about Luke Skywalker's story, his arc, his finale, if you will, in episode 8, and why it was such a slap in the face to fans. So I don't know why they're really saying scorn from his debut. I wasn't around in 77, so I don't know if they originally shat on Mark Hamill, but my generation that grew up in the 80s and 90s, we love Mark Hamill. We think he's great in that role, and he's even better as the Joker. So, you know what? I don't know where this scorn comes from. I'm going to have to sit there and say citation needed, bleeding cool. I don't know why you're not providing citation to that. But anyway, no, Rian Johnson who gets the crap. And Mark Hamill's even called out Rian Johnson multiple times. Even though every time he does kind of talk a little bit of truth, he spits that fire about the movie, he always kind of backtracks it a little bit because he's still a professional and doesn't want to, like, you know, alienate anyone in the business. And I'm sure he actually likes Rian Johnson, just that he really dislikes where things went. Now, he spoke to The Hollywood Reporter about the abundance of Star Wars content across TV and film, Solo underachieving at the box office and his show. And he says here, when asked if audiences grow tired from the overstimulation that can come from the Star Wars franchise, Hamill admitted that this definitely is a strong possibility, saying, yes, I'm not going to tell them how to run their business, but is there a possibility of Star Wars fatigue? Yes, I think there is. I've experienced it to a certain degree, but they never listened to my idea anyway, so who needs them? Okay. So let's kind of break that down for a second. Is there a Star Wars fatigue for Mark Hamill? Yeah. I would argue that there absolutely is. And that makes a lot of sense because he's been in this for 40 plus years. You know, the movie came out May 5th, 1977. Or I think, no, May 25th, 1977. Sorry. And they shot the movie in 1976, which means that he would have been cast in probably 1975 and been working on the movie for a while during pre-production before shooting it. And then, so you figure from, you know, 1975, respectfully, to now, 2019, that's 44 years. 44 years of every time he goes anywhere, it's, hey, yo, Luke. Hey, yo, Luke. You know, do the sound, man. You know, do it, brother. And I'm sure he gets that all the time. Also gets a whole bunch of, do the Joker, Luke. Come on, do the Joker. Do the Joker. You can do it. Yeah, he gets a lot of that too. Mark Hamill is a staple in pop culture. I'd argue that Luke Skywalker in the last 50 years is probably the most important character to pop culture. And we're talking like not just the last 50 years, but like ever. You know, I mean, there are people out there that genuinely love this man for playing this role. So the way I look at it essentially is this. Yes, he's important to the role. He's important to the franchise. So to him, having lived it for, at this point, 2/3 of his life, fatigue makes a lot of sense. But let's break it down in regards to what we have for Star Wars and whether or not there is fatigue. Now, if you look at it from maybe a comic book perspective or a novel perspective with the EU and everything else, yeah, maybe one could argue that, but no one ever said Star Wars fatigue leading up to the purchase of Lucasfilm from Disney and then Disney killing the EU. People were mad about that because they loved it. So one could argue that the fatigue aspect of it doesn't even really apply. Star Wars comics lived for years, going between Marvel and I believe even Dark Horse had it for a while. No one ever complained about Star Wars fatigue in comics. There we go. 2008, right? I mean, even with the prequel trilogy, no one complained of Star Wars fatigue. They complained about bad movies. They complained about bad acting, wooden dialogue, and really kind of plots. Yeah, Phantom Menace. I'm looking at you. So they've said that for years, but no one ever said Star Wars fatigue. Then 2008 rolls around, we get that really bad Star Wars Clone Wars movie that led into a show that kind of had a bit of a rocky start, but by the end of it was a force on television, pun intended, that people absolutely lost their shit over. And when they announced at Celebration last year that they were going to be, was it Celebration or Comic-Con? I forget when, but whatever, when they announced last year that Clone Wars is coming back for a 7th and final season, people lost their shit. People absolutely lost their shit. So one could argue even in regards to that, that fatigue doesn't exist. Even with the Rebels TV series, had 4 seasons, told a very good, complex, satisfying story. Fans were crying at the end. No one can argue fatigue on that front. But then you look at even Resistance right now, which is doing well enough on Disney XD in order to get a 2nd season, and no one's arguing about fatigue over that. But what they're talking about fatigue is the movies. Now, the movies suffered a very, very, very big problem, and that is the fact that episode 8 was a crap fest, and that led into Solo, which is a movie that people like to argue nobody asked for. But to be fair, we don't really ask for much that we get anyway, so screw it. I think that's a dead argument. I think it's a dead, dumb argument. You can't really argue that Solo is a movie nobody asked for, when every movie that comes out ultimately is a movie nobody asked for. Well, nobody asked for Star Wars, said somebody in 1977. Here we are 40 some odd years later, and who the fuck is that guy? That's right, nobody. Who cares? Movies come and movies go. The problem ultimately boiled down to this. Solo was a middling product. I really liked it. I've watched it multiple times on home video, and it's one of my favorite movies from last year. I really enjoyed it, and it gets better every time I watch it. And a lot more people who avoided it in the cinemas also enjoyed it on Netflix or on home video, and they also like it. So it is finding its home there, but it's, you know, clearly it's a failure, and there's no denying that. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans felt ultimately betrayed by The Last Jedi. I think Mark Hamill coming out saying that Star Wars fatigue is a thing only really applies to him, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Billy Dee Williams, Anthony Williams, you know, Peter Mayhew, James Earl Jones, Kenny Baker, may he rest in peace, you know, and anyone, George Lucas, and anyone else associated with Star Wars from the beginning. Those people are the only ones that can really argue Star Wars fatigue. What people are really arguing now in regards to the controversy surrounding The Last Jedi is a bad movie. We could handle a bad movie with Lucas at the helm. We did that with The Phantom Menace and ultimately Attack of the Clones. Now, upon later reflection, I think Attack of the Clones got a lot better, to be honest with you. If you look at it from more of a political theater mindset, I think it's a lot better. And Revenge of the Sith was dope. Fuck you, fight me on that one. But the thing is that we've dealt with bad and mediocre before. But the thing is, those movies still held to a continuity. Those movies still held to an overall arc. Yeah, we might have known where things were going, but we didn't know exactly how the trail got there. We just knew the end point. We kind of know where things are going now, but we still don't know how to get to that end point. The problem with it is what was laid out before us in episode 7 was completely pissed on in episode 8. So much so that even Abrams is like, remember, you know, he came out and admitted basically that he didn't know, that he didn't, that there, you know, he's like, I got to start from scratch on this one because that motherfucker over there decided to completely shut on my work, you know? So the problem here with the fatigue is Rian Johnson. That's the fatigue. What Disney did in regards to releasing Solo 6 months later, thinking they had a surefire $2 billion success on their hands with The Last Jedi, is the problem. They should have bumped Mary Poppins to 2019. Seriously, bump it to, like, I don't know, March. I know they had Captain Marvel, but wait like 2 weeks and put it out after that, or wait till Mother's Day. I don't know. You should have bumped Mary Poppins, put Solo in its place. Solo would have been a year post the Last Jedi controversy. Most of the people who were complaining about it would have gotten the fuck over it, and a lot of other people would have just moved on with their life, and they probably would have gone and seen it because at the time it was up against the Aquaman, and well, quite frankly, nobody knew Aquaman was going to do what it was going to do. So even my hypothetical here, my theoretical, doesn't necessarily jive when looking at the actual box office results, considering how well Aquaman did, but it would have done better than it did on Memorial Day up against Deadpool 2's second weekend. That's what I'm trying to say here. If you look at how Disney handled it, and they bungled it with episode 8 and the controversy surrounding Solo, which already denigrated a lot of people's interest coming off of what happened in June of 2017 when they fired Phil Lord and Chris Miller and replaced it with Ron Howard. So that was already a situation where people were like, ooh, you know, things here may not be what they seem. And then the controversy surrounding Last Jedi and going into that, like, I don't want to keep repeating myself. I'm thinking like I'm talking in a circle here, but I think you guys are getting what I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, the only real bungling here is Kathleen Kennedy and the leadership at Lucasfilm. Mark Hamill has Star Wars fatigue. The rest of us, not really, because we haven't had enough over the years to really get bottlenecked into the last couple. I mean, if we can sit there and stomach 3 Marvel movies a year, a couple of DC films a year, and every other attempt at a shitty freaking cinematic universe, we can stomach 1 Star Wars movie a year. It's not the end of the world. The problem with it is, though, is that the expectations are so vastly different per person that it ends up becoming a problem. And the people out there that want to tell these stories are having trouble condensing it into just a movie. But they also screwed up by going into this new trilogy without a coherent plan in place, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, but that's where they dropped the ball, and that's where we are right now. So the way I view it is this. No, Star Wars fatigue isn't there. If we were getting 3 movies a year and they were all mediocre and they were all bad, but Disney kept forcing it down our throats, then I would agree. But getting a couple TV series, a few books, some comics, and a new park, not the end of the damn world, in my opinion. Not by a long shot, and I don't think a lot of you really think that way either. All right. So, end of the episode here, folks. End of the episode. We do have a voicemail to listen to, the one that came in, and I'll be answering that. Remember, you guys can call in at 818-350-3281. That is 818-350-3281. Try to keep it under 30 seconds. And same with if you send in a voicemail through email, you guys can do that too. But what we have here is AJ with a comment.
Hey, Matt. This is AJ again. I would really like to hear your thoughts on the time loop theory for Endgame. I just saw a video, New Rockstars, and that was insane. If that's real, I think it could be really good. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Peace out.
All right. Thanks a lot, AJ, for calling in. To be honest with you, I haven't seen the New Rockstars video about the time loop theory, but we do know that there is going to be, the theory is that time travel plays a large part in Endgame, right? I mean, if you look at what Doctor Strange did by going down the 14 million different possible outcomes and only it being one, he clearly set motions in play in order to get there, which is why he gave up the stone. He gave up the stone. He looked at Tony and said, we're in the end game now, meaning that whatever's happened is I set us down the path that is going to end up saving the day. He knew what it was. He's going that way. And if you notice, the time stone that appeared right out of midair, he had it. He was able to hide it. Similar to how Loki hid the Tesseract in the beginning, which I thought was kind of a weird, I don't know if it's a weird coincidence or not, but that's one of those things. And yeah, so I think that ultimately they're going to use the quantum realm to go back in time, because of the time vortex that was mentioned by Michelle Pfeiffer at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. If any of you guys actually went and saw it, considering how many people out there, saw Ant-Man and the Wasp when it came out compared to Endgame or Infinity War, probably not all of you. So there's obviously been teasing in regards to time travel for quite some time, and that's good. That's going to be a lot of fun to see what they do with it. We do know that there have been some behind the scenes shots that have showed them going back to the Battle of New York with Captain America wearing his old stuff. So I don't know if it's going to be Iron Man going back and you know, kind of pulling Cap aside saying, look, I need you to do this thing for me right quick. Don't tell me about it, but you go and do it. We don't know yet what it's going to be, but I think there's going to be multiple attempts at trying to stop Thanos. This is a 3-hour movie. They have a lot to go through. So I don't quite know what the time loop is going to be on this one. I don't know if they're going to, if that's exactly what Doctor Strange did, was put it in a time loop. So then they would be able to go back. But then again, he only was able to do it because he had the eye of Dormammu, or the eye of whatever it's called, Agamotto. The eye of Agamotto. Dormammu's bad guy, my bad. You know, and then was able to do it. He was in control. Now, if he activated, but here's the thing too, is there's that scene when he pulls the time stone out of the air. It's glowing as if it's activated. So he could have put in a time loop. And if you put it in a time loop, then the question becomes, when the hell does it end? And what do you do what do you do if you don't know the time loop exists? 'Cause he didn't explain it to Tony before he disappeared. Or maybe he did and we just didn't see it because we were watching what happened back on Wakanda when Thanos showed up over there and kind of, messed everyone's day up. So we don't know how long it was in between him getting the time stone and the snap. We have no idea. It's clearly what appears to be like a few minutes, but it could be like an hour or so. And in that meantime, Doctor Strange could have outright told everyone the plan in order to make sure that Robert Downey Jr. was fully aware of where things are going to go and then ultimately what he had to do. And at the end of the day, that could be it. This could turn into Groundhog Day MCU edition. And if it's more Robert Downey Jr. on screen, I am okay with it, to be honest with you. If this is his last outing, I want him to have as much screen time as humanly possible. But either way, man, we got 15 days till go time. My body is getting ready for that 3-hour experience. I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to dive in. And I really do appreciate you writing in on that one or calling in, AJ. And remember, if you guys want to call in as well, the voicemail line is there. We're always open for business, and I look forward to interacting with you guys through emails or through comments or questions or things like that. Anyway, this has been 3 Buck Theater for today. I do want to keep these a little short. This is around 35 minutes, which is a little, it's good. It's good. Good length. I appreciate everyone watching. Have yourself a fantastic day, guys.